It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
I do want to get into our news actually for tonight, and we'll start with our featured story. Very similar, along a very similar line of argument here. Our featured story tonight, we're talking all about the recently unveiled letter from Charlie Kirk to Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, I want to say at the outset, we don't know if this is the real letter. Okay? Full disclosure. We are being told by the New York Post that they have obtained the letter. We don't know where they got it from. There is no date on the letter, but it is being presented to us as the letter. Now, if anybody is aware of the existence of a different letter, like Candace Owens, then she should contribute the information that is relevant to the public discourse. But until or unless that happens, this is what we have to work with. And we have no reason necessarily to believe that this is a phony letter. If the letter is phony, clearly Candace Owens has a copy of it because she said that if the letter is misrepresented, that she would come out and say something. So I would encourage her to come forward with her version of it if such a thing exists. Unless that happens or until that happens, this is what we have to go by. And what letter am I talking about? Well, about 3 weeks ago, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, of course, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, went on television and to support his claim that Charlie Kirk was a supporter of Israel until he died, something which is being questioned, something which has been scrutinized over the past several weeks, Netanyahu held up a physical copy of a letter which Charlie Kirk allegedly sent to Netanyahu in May. And he said, Charlie Kirk sent me a letter and I invited him to Israel. And he said this to prove that Charlie Kirk remained a supporter of Israel until his death. Ever since Charlie Kirk died, people online, people like Tucker Carlson, Max Blumenthal, Candace Owens in particular, have insinuated that they are aware of some private epiphany that although Charlie Kirk supported Israel his entire life, his entire professional career, publicly until his death, they claim that privately Charlie Kirk was evolving on the issue. They claim that Charlie's Jewish pro-Israel donors were furious with him. There was tension, maybe outright hostility. They believed that he was anti-Semitic. They believed that he wasn't doing enough to support Israel. Charlie Kirk was clearly frustrated by those accusations. He maintained that he is pro-Israel, but that because he was insufficiently pro-Israel, in other words, he wasn't pro-Israel enough, that they were very aggressive towards him, which he did not like, and he felt that they were ungrateful for his prior support. So this is the narrative, of course, that's been going around. And for that reason, people are implicating Israel in his assassination. The narrative goes something like this. They say that Charlie Kirk was becoming one of the most powerful conservatives in America. And he was empowered in that way by pro-Israel Jewish donors. They lavished his organization, Turning Point, with millions of dollars. And they frequently collaborated on birthright trips, sponsored trips to Israel, and Turning Point USA, as well as Charlie Kirk, were extremely publicly pro-Israel and vocally pro-Israel in conservative politics. The argument goes that in the aftermath of Israel's war in Gaza, their push for America to enter the war in Iran, the disclosure on Jeffrey Epstein and his involvement with Israeli intelligence, that Charlie Kirk was beginning to change his mind. And the argument goes that Israel was so threatened by the prospect that such a powerful person formerly a client of theirs, would turn against them, that they had to eliminate him. He would pose too great of a threat. Running the youth organization for the right wing, being a potential presidential candidate, having the ear of Trump, and of course, seeing it as a great betrayal of his former patrons, they said it was unacceptable to let him continue living, so they publicly executed him, not only to silence him, but also to send a message to everybody else and chill any Israel-critical speech on the right wing. That's the argument. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu came out very quickly and said, that's not true because I have this letter. The same day, Candace Owens, who is a proponent of that aforementioned theory, Candace Owens came out and said Netanyahu is misrepresenting the letter. He claims the letter indicates that Charlie Kirk was pro-Israel, that it was a friendly letter, that it expressed support, that the sentiment of the letter was pro-Israel. Candace implies that Netanyahu is misrepresenting the actual substance or tone of the letter and is completely distorting the sentiment or the meaning of it. She seemed to imply that the letter was critical of Israel or anti-Israel, or maybe foreshadowing that Charlie Kirk would one day turn on Israel. So, after Netanyahu held up the letter, she said, if you keep saying that, I will reveal the letter. Well, she never did. It's been 3 weeks. She has not shown us the letter. She has not told us anything in it. She has not told us the contents of the letter, the tone of the letter. She has not given us a copy of it. She has confirmed its existence. The existence of such a letter is not in dispute, but we have gotten nothing from her. So that leads us to believe that either she was lying and does not actually have the letter, or she is withholding the letter for some reason. I can't imagine why. If the letter contained evidence that Charlie Kirk was turning against Israel, then surely that would be relevant and of extreme public import, because that would be written, hard evidence that Charlie Kirk was against Israel, and that would give us some evidence as to a motive of why the Israeli government might want to take him out. So either she never had it and she lied, and all she knew about the letter was hearsay, and she exaggerated what she knew about it, but either didn't have it or maybe didn't exactly know what was in it, and that's why she falsely called Netanyahu a liar, or she's withholding it for some reason, in which case I would say, and I reiterate, I don't know why people are telling me I'm covering things up. I'm doing the opposite. I want to put the pressure on Candace Owens. Give us all of the evidence that you have. If Israel killed Charlie Kirk, then, we need to go to war with Israel. If a foreign government assassinated a powerful American on U.S. soil because he opposed America's entry into their war, everyone needs to know that. The public needs to know that. The government needs to know that. And if the government is engaged in a cover-up, then the public needs to know to expose the cover-up. So I am once again reiterating, I implore Candace Owens, if you have a copy of the letter, a different version of the letter, or maybe it's this letter, you have to release it immediately, because the public will move on from this. The further we get from the assassination, the less public interest, the less public pressure, and if there is some cover-up, the more they will be able to cover up their tracks or produce misinformation or disinformation. So if you have a copy of the letter, which is not this letter, then you have to release it. We need to see it. I need to see it. The public needs to see it. The world needs to see it. Now, with that being said, today, the New York Post released what they are claiming is the letter. We have no reason to believe that this is some fabrication. From reading it, it sounds like Charlie Kirk. It sounds like it would be hard to forge this. There are certain details in the letter, the tone of the letter. It's sort of a strange tone if it was a fabrication. What's more, the New York Post is a pro-Israel publication. If Netanyahu has a copy of the letter, then surely, and if it exonerates him, it would find its way in the front page of the New York Post. If there's a different version of it, then Candace can really blow the lid on the whole thing. If they are putting out a false version of the letter, and they know that other people have it, someone like Candace Owens, then this would be really shooting themselves in the foot. Because if an alternative version of the letter were produced, and it made them out to be liars, then it would not only prove that they had a motive to kill Charlie Kirk, it would actually prove that they're fabricating evidence for their cover-up. So if they produced a fabricated letter, knowing that Candace has the real one, I think that would backfire. That would be shooting themselves in the foot tremendously. It would be easily disprovable and catastrophically such. Not only would it destroy their credibility, but it would actually prove they're covering it up. So anyway, those are my qualifications for what we're about to talk about, because it is important when we talk about the evidence. You know, we have to talk about how we acquired the evidence and where it comes from and the logic behind it. Like I said, the New York Post published the letter in full. It is 7 pages. It is dated from early May 2025. It is a letter from Charlie Kirk to Bibi Netanyahu. This is what the New York Post says about the letter. It says, quote, Charlie Kirk wrote to Netanyahu in this May 2nd missive that he was alarmed by anti-Israel and anti-Semitic trends hitting record levels on social media, because one of his greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews in the fight to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. It says Netanyahu first mentioned the letter in a September 18th video address 8 days after Charlie Kirk was shot and killed to dispute monstrous falsehoods that Israel was somehow behind the killing. Right-wing pundit Candace Owens and others have claimed that Kirk was being blackmailed into making firm defenses of Israel in public while privately questioning U.S. support for the Jewish state. Bill Ackman later published private text messages disputing that characterization. And by the way, those text messages have not been disputed. As far as we are aware, those are real. Now, this is the letter. I'm going to read it to you. I took some liberties with it. You can find the entire thing. It's on the New York Post website, and multiple people have tweeted it. But I will read to you the most important parts. I kept most of it in here. I'm going to read to you most of the letter. This is Charlie Kirk to Benjamin Netanyahu on May 2nd, 2025. He writes, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews in the fight to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. Most recently, I am proud to have taken over Ambassador Huckabee's show on TBN, where we continually support Israel and the Jewish people. As Mohammedanism spreads into Western societies, it is critical that Jews and Christians stay united in the effort to contain and roll back radical Islam and Sharia law. I regret to report that anti-Israel and anti-Semitic trends are at record levels on social media. My team and I have spent months analyzing these trends and debating ideas that could help you and your country push back against these disturbing developments. Anti-Israel sentiment can undermine American support for Israel. Wouldn't want to do that. The purpose of this letter is to lay out our concerns and outline potential remedies. Everything written here is from a place of deep love for Israel and the Jewish people. I think it's important to be brutally honest with those you love. It's tough love. In my opinion, Israel is losing the information war and needs a communications intervention. I started to compose this letter to you on Easter. I should have been focused on my family, but I was getting bombarded with messages about the Israeli army, making it difficult for Christians to access church in Jerusalem on Easter. At the time, I did not see any official statements pushing back on this narrative. It was frustrating because pro-Israel surrogates like me, pro-Israel surrogate, by the way, should not be in charge of fact-checking every piece of anti-Israel misinformation that pours onto social media. And it wasn't just Easter. On my recent campus tours, half the questions I get are about Israel, and they're all negative. I often spend half my time on these campus tours defending Jews in Israel, which I'm proud to do because I love Israel and love the Jewish faith. I spent endless hours with Dennis Prager over the years studying the Torah. Sometimes it feels like I'm defending Israel in public more than your own government. I'm accused of being a paid apologist for Israel when I defend her. However, if I don't defend Israel strongly enough, I'm accused of being anti-Semitic. I know you've got a seven front war, and my kvetching pales in comparison. Kvetching is Yiddish for complaining. But I'm trying to convey to you that Israel is losing support even in conservative circles. This should be a 5-alarm fire. I've often asked myself, why is Israel killing so many I'm often asked, why is Israel killing so many innocent civilians in Gaza? I know Israel goes to great lengths by dropping flyers and even calling civilians to clear out areas about to be bombed. I know Israel posts maps showing which areas should be evacuated. I know that Hamas uses civilians as human shields. But 90% of the younger generations get their news from social media and podcasts. And there's very little pushback for fact-checking by the Israeli government and or pro-Israel supporters in the media. I strongly suggest Israel not always depend on subcontracting their information war to surrogates in America. Mr. Prime Minister, I urge you to revamp your information warfare from top to bottom. Sometimes the impression is given that Israel thinks everyone hates them, so why care about winning over hearts and minds? If there's truth to this impression, I urge you to consider that social media and podcasts is where you fight for the hearts and minds of the younger generation. Obviously, all this negative Israel propaganda on social media translates into pro-Hamas, free Palestine sentiment on many campuses. Here are some unsolicited recommendations my team and I suggest if you're open-minded to a communications reset. 1. For starters, you need a rapid response media team. President Trump does this very effectively. You are an eloquent defender of Israel, but you need a team of information warriors pushing back every day in real time. When you don't push back, anti-Semitism and anti-Israel propaganda fills the void. A pro-Israel friend recently asked me, do Israelis even care how the world perceives their country? 2, I strongly recommend putting together a team of pro-Israel experts who can fact-check misinformation in real time for Israel. Israel needs to take the lead. No more dependence on subcontractors. Israel never asked for American troops because Israel does its own fighting. Is that so? I suggest the same approach for the information war. You lead and people like me will follow and provide supplemental support. If you're open to revamping your communication strategy, my team and I will assist. 3, you need something perhaps like an Israel Truth Network or ITN, which can include social media channels and a one-stop source of information website where, for example, all the negative Israel questions I get can be debunked. I would love to refer students to such a website. This website could be a conduit to groups like Hillel and Jewish educators like Dennis Prager. There can be links to books, podcasts, media personalities, and pro-Israel thought leaders. The website can be a place where Judeo-Christian leaders and groups can share information and form closer alliances in the fight against Islamic fundamentalism. The Israel Truth Network social media can post pro-Israel, pro-Judeo-Christian video clips, breaking news and articles. It could potentially be a news aggregation site for all news pertaining to Israel and Judeo-Christian efforts to preserve Western civilization. Have you ever considered inviting some of the released Israeli hostages to go on a speaking tour in the United States? This could be very effective. We're like halfway through the letter, by the way. This is who Max Blumenthal and Candace Owens want us to believe was the second coming of Hitler. Israel needed to kill this guy because he was about to blow the lid on the whole operation. They couldn't bribe him, couldn't blackmail him, couldn't negotiate with him. He had to be eliminated. He had to go because he was too out of control. This is the guy? Halfway. The article goes on. You need a one-stop shopping resource where Israel's platform and beliefs can be spelled out. I know it's common to think social media is a waste of time, but TikTok algorithms, have changed. I have increased my followers on TikTok from 1 million to 6 million in the last year. There's that number again. We get billions of views on TikTok. My campus tour last fall received 5 billion impressions. Elon Musk is a friend to Israel, so X offers a great opportunity to make inroads on social media. Israel should not sit back and allow its enemies to define her. A recent Pew Research poll showed 53% of Americans have an unfavorable view of Israel. U.S. support for Israel is precarious. A new media strategy is urgently needed. I understand social media as well as anyone in the world. That's certainly true. From my vantage point, Israel has retreated from social media without a fight. How are you going to win over younger generations if you're starting out in retreat? Mr. Prime Minister, stop this retreat. Get in the information war fight. The front lines of this information war are on social media. Other than a few guerrilla warfare operations, there's little Israel-created content. Is that even true? I saw Israel has increased its Hasbara budget by 20 times, which is great news. There's great news. There's also hundreds of millions of dollars raised by private pro-Israel groups. Some of this money should be directed into creating pro-Israel original content. Next, promote this content on Israel-operated social media channels and websites. Use the funds to start the Israel Truth Network. To sum up, you should consider reshaping your Hasbara department into a political campaign headquarters with narrative experts. Hasbara could be the mothership hosting Israel Truth Network, where the messaging campaign can be created and distributed to pro-Israel groups and thought leaders. Israel is the Silicon Valley of the Middle East. Israel has an abundance of brain power and technological expertise. The question is whether Israel has the willpower to step up its game. From my vantage point, the status quo is not working. Israel is getting crushed on social media, and you are losing younger generations of Americans. In my opinion, you are losing the information war, which will translate into less political and military support from America. The Holy Land is so important to my life, and it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Contact me on my private number below if you'd like to discuss this further. Okay. So that was Charlie Kirk's letter, allegedly, to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Now, if the letter is fake, then Candace Owens, please tell us. Candace Owens, if you can hear us, please. If the letter is fake, then tell us. But we are going to have to assume that if Candace Owens goes live tomorrow and she does not give us an alternative letter, or if she does not dispute the accuracy or the legitimacy of this letter, we're going to have to assume this is real. This is a pretty unambiguous message. And it pretty unambiguously says and indicates that Charlie Kirk supported Israel until the day that he died. This is consistent with other evidence that has surfaced in the past several weeks. If the New York Post is claiming this is the letter, then this kind of seals the deal that probably Charlie Kirk did not have an epiphany on Israel if this is what he was writing. If this is real and these were his thoughts and this was his real idea, very clearly he was not breaking with Israel in any meaningful way, obviously. So I'm going to assume that if she does not come out tomorrow, she or Blumenthal or Tucker or any of them, if the veracity of this letter is not disputed within 24 hours, we're going to have to assume that's because they can't dispute it. They won't dispute it because it is real. Now, if the letter is real, what does this tell us about Charlie Kirk? It tells us that Charlie Kirk was the same person on September 10th that he was on September 9th, that he was on May 2nd, that he was in 2019 and before that. To the extent that he was publicly chafing with some of his pro-Israel donors. Why is that? It is because in the past 2 years, the entire world has awakened to the evil doings of Israel. The whole world, and especially the younger generation. What is Charlie Kirk's profession? Charlie Kirk runs the largest conservative campus organization in the country. Charlie Kirk, as the face of that organization, is on the front lines. He has to go to 100 campuses every year. And beyond that, has to go to major conventions and dinners and fundraisers and events with the leadership of his organization, who are college-aged students. He has to be on the front lines facing the younger generation that is awakened on Israel. And what do you think they're talking about? What do you think they're asking about? When Charlie Kirk goes and interfaces with the younger generation, as he writes in this letter, and as you can assume even without it, he is being asked about Israel. And it's always been like this, but it's especially been like this in the past couple years. Students are coming to his events, and as he claims in the letter, half the questions he's asked are about Israel. Now, as we know, Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, like all of Con Inc., is pro-Israel. Daily Wire, Fox News, The Blaze, the Republican Party, the Trump administration, these are all pro-Israel institutions. Turning Point is no different. And Turning Point is part of the same constellation. Turning Point works with all of those. There is cross-contamination and overlap with all of them. It is part and parcel of the conservative movement. The difference between Charlie Kirk and the rest of them is because of Charlie Kirk's role, he actually has to face the young people in a way that Fox News hosts do not, in a way that The Blaze, PragerU, Daily Wire does not. None of them interface with the young people as much as Charlie Kirk. So was Charlie Kirk turning against Israel, or was Charlie Kirk conveying to the Israelis that they have a crisis with the young people? Was Charlie Kirk being made uncomfortable that, look, the Zionist donors want him to peddle this propaganda? And they get to do that from their mansions in Beverly Hills, their mansions in South Florida, their mansions wherever they reside. But Charlie Kirk is the one that actually has to step into the arena. And when you've got former soldiers, when you've got veterans, when you've got 20-year-olds with MAGA hats and rosaries coming up one after the other and saying, do you support genocide? Do you support Israel controlling America? Charlie Kirk is made uncomfortable. He's going to his donors and saying, hey, man, I can't be expected to do all the heavy lifting. I'm getting killed out here, and I don't say that to be funny or glib, but, you understand the expression. It's tough out here. I'm on the front lines interfacing with these kids. You're losing the battle. Nobody likes you. I got to peddle this nonsense. So can you help me? Point being, was Charlie Kirk having a legitimate change of heart? Was he a good faith actor who loves America, was changing his mind, grappling with the donors and fear for his life, trying to do the right thing? Or is he a patron, or rather a client of the donors, being forced to sell crap and being frustrated about it, wearing his ass on his head and sending to Netanyahu a letter saying, look, man, I love you. I love Israel. I support Israel. I want America to support Israel, but you got to help me. You got to meet me halfway because, look, you're losing the battle. And if you're losing the battle, I don't want to go down with the sinking ship. Now, here's why the timeline matters. This letter was sent on May 2nd. A week later, Charlie Kirk reached out to Bill Ackman himself. Charlie Kirk texted the pro-Israel, liberal Democrat, Jewish billionaire Bill Ackman from Wall Street. And Charlie Kirk initiated a dialogue and said, we should do something. And they together planned an influencer retreat in August, which was the subject of all this acrimony. Charlie Kirk made the guest list, invited the attendees, created the schedule, organized it at a hotel, invited many pro-Israel influencers. They debated about Israel, and then they all went to Israel on a sponsored trip. That was a turning point event. Now, in the context of this letter, does that not make sense? That Charlie Kirk was negotiating with the Zionist lobby, telling them, listen, I'm a partner. I want to help you, but you're losing the information battle. I have to defend this. If I don't defend absolutely everything, you're attacking me. I'm trying to be part of the solution. So Charlie Kirk is reaching out to Jewish billionaires and saying, let's make an influencer retreat and let's train them in Hasbara talking points. Because that's who was invited. Xavier DeRusso, who was unloading cringe pro-Israel content, he was at that Hamptons retreat organized by Turning Point. He was sent to Israel in the weeks after that retreat. Is that not consistent with what's in the letter? Is that not consistent with the texts that Charlie Kirk exchanged with Bill Ackman, which we've now seen? Is that not consistent with Charlie Kirk's entire career? It's like all of you forgot who he was. Did he deserve to be killed? No. Is it tragic that he died? Absolutely. Was he a hard worker? Sure, certainly. But let's not forget who he was. Let's not forget what Turning Point USA was. Let's not forget what that whole operation is about. Lest we forget, the Trump administration, as Bibi Netanyahu said today, is the most pro-Israel government in history, and it's not even close. Those words came out of the prime minister's mouth this afternoon. The Trump administration is the most pro-Israel administration in history, and it isn't even close. And what was Charlie Kirk's role? He was the head of Students for Trump in 2020 and 2024. He was close to everyone in the administration. He was the administration's biggest cheerleader. And they had all the same donors. There was virtually zero daylight between the Trump administration and Turning Point USA. Zero zip. And Trump has always been that way, and Turning Point has always been that way. The only difference is that Charlie Kirk was a bit more of a shrewd strategist, and he actually had to go and face the music. Charlie Kirk going out day in, day out, he was not immune from the reality, which he did not create, which he did not lead. The reality that millions of people are waking up on Israel. And he's coming to campus defending it regardless, and it made him uncomfortable that it was hurting his brand. He reaches out to Netanyahu and says, listen, man, I'm losing this debate. It's an unwinnable debate. You got to help me. Does that represent a change of heart? Absolutely not. Do you know what the real predicament that we are in actually is? It's not that Israel does not have a more competent information warfare program against America. That, as articulated by Charlie Kirk, that's not the problem. Let me tell you the problem. The problem is that Israel is genociding Palestinians and then sending them here. The problem is that Israel is dragging us into a war in Iran. The problem is that by defending Israel's conduct in all of this, we are losing reputation around the world. The problem is this arrangement is guaranteed by an Israeli influence operation on our soil. The problem is they are able to have that because we have dual loyalist Jewish billionaires that were born in America that are more loyal to Israel than the United States. The problem is we have tolerated this because we're an open society. That in a nutshell is the problem. Now, If you're somebody like Donald Trump or Charlie Kirk or Matt Walsh or any of these people, there is no excuse to not be aware of it at this point. I'm hard-pressed to believe they don't see that. And if you know this is happening, it's your obligation to fight against it. The president has the power to stop Israel. These commentators have the power to change the conversation. It matters very little if in 2025 you're having a private change of heart that you're telling nobody about. What is the excuse? If Charlie Kirk is writing a letter to the Prime Minister of Israel begging him to assault Americans with foreign propaganda, do you think that's like a good position to have? Glorious Prime Minister, many blessings upon Israel and the Jews. I proudly defend you every day, but I beg you to assault my country with foreign propaganda more effectively. Does that sound like foreshadowing a radical reversal on Israel? In his infamous interview with Megyn Kelly in August, where he said that he was tired of being called an anti-Semite, did Charlie Kirk say, I'm done supporting Israel? Did he say, I criticize Israel? His words exactly were, if I keep getting called an anti-Semite, you're never going to lose me, he said, but you're going to dampen and deflate your biggest warriors. That was from August. That's the interview where everybody said he was red-pilled. In May, he's begging Netanyahu, please do a better job raping my country with pro-Israel propaganda. In July, he's hosting a focus group. Well, we could criticize Netanyahu, but, we don't support Hamas. We all still love Israel, and maybe we could agree not to talk about it anymore, right? In August, if you keep calling me an anti-Semite, well, you're not going to lose me, but I'll be a deflated warrior for Israel. It's very clear what was going on here. And the letter just makes it unambiguous. Every single argument that has been made about Charlie Kirk turning on Israel has basically just been exposed. And the only reason people say you're arguing so hard in defense, it's because it is simply not true. It just is not true. And what I think the GOP is doing is they're trying now to bring the Israel critical side into support for the GOP, pretending that Charlie Kirk was some kind of secret martyr for the anti-Israel cause, when in fact he was not. Every aspect of this theory, from they said Bill Ackman intimidated him, screamed at him, blackmailed him. We saw the text messages. Charlie set up that event. They said Netanyahu offered him a $150 million bribe. They came out and said, no one ever said that. It wasn't $150 million. Might have been $2 million. Okay, well, that's a big difference. They said he's lying about the letter. In his letter, he was really going hard on Netanyahu. Okay, did you read the letter? Glorious Prime Minister, please, you're losing the information war. Get better at Hezbollah. I mean, come on now. So I am open to any counter argument. I am open to all evidence. If this is not the letter, please show me the real letter. If this is not the letter, please tell me this is not the real letter. And I'd be willing to investigate that. I'm curious where the letter came from. I'm curious what the source is from the New York Post. But I have no reason to believe it isn't real. It's consistent with the rest of what they've produced, which has not been disputed by the people pushing this theory that there was some sort of turn in the works, or that he had to be eliminated because he could not be intimidated or influenced. It just is not true. And now we have the letter. So this past 3 weeks has felt like bizarro world, the way that people are lionizing Charlie Kirk as though he was a martyr going up against Israeli influence in America, when we all knew On September 9th, on the morning of September 10th, we knew what he was. We knew what he was about. We knew his positions. We were set in opposition to him. And then it's like he got shot, tragic as it was, and everybody turned upside down, and it turned into he was, I mean, you don't even know what they're comparing him to, like a Pat Buchanan-esque figure, like he was taken out in defense of America against Israeli influence. It is the most strange, bizarre case of mass hysteria I've ever seen. And I don't even necessarily think it's a bad thing that was everybody's gut reaction. I said this on my show last week. At this point, I don't necessarily think it's a negative sign that everybody's first instinct was to blame Israel, even though it wasn't true. I think that's maybe a healthy correction because, of course, before, you could never implicate Israel in anything, and they were blameless, and they were the eternal victim. So maybe this is like a healthy corrective, but it's been 3 weeks. Now we can be honest. The guy was not about to turn, and this letter proves it. So last thing I'll say, once again, reiterating, if anybody, and for those that say it's a fake letter, why are you pushing this Israeli propaganda? If someone has the real letter or knows this is a forgery, please tell us that information. Share with us the proof, because this would be an extraordinary cover-up if they forged a letter. And wow, what a bold forgery it would be for it to contain such pro-Israel sentiment if apparently the letter contains something to the contrary. So we're still waiting on that. I'm sitting here, it's been 3 weeks, and we've heard from Max Blumenthal, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. There's all this evidence that he was being blackmailed, bribed, he couldn't be controlled, he had this letter, and every passing day, this narrative is just getting blown up, and it's making those people lose credibility. And I'm just starting to question what they were trying to do with that. What was the plan there? I don't even get it. Charlie Kirk was their top goy. What do we gain by pretending that he was anything other than that? He was Israel's top goy right up until the morning that he died, when he was practicing Hasbara with his rabbi, not making it up. That's real. When he was interviewing Ben Shapiro the day before. I don't even know what the point of that would be to pretend otherwise. So anyway, that's that. But I do want to move on. I want to get into, we might have to save it for tomorrow. We're already an hour and a half into the show. We might have to save the Israeli peace plan for tomorrow because we're just out of time, and it's a huge subject. I want to do it justice. So I might I'm going to save this story about the Gaza peace plan for tomorrow. We're just out of time tonight. 90 minutes in, we haven't even started. Like I said, it's a 20-point plan, so it is a lot to cover. We have to talk about the press conference, what is in the plan, prospect that it's going to be agreed upon by all the parties involved. So I think we'll just save it tomorrow. We'll save it for tomorrow. We'll stop here. We're going to move on. We'll take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say. I'm curious what people are going to say about my take on the letter. To me, this is not a surprise at all. The way that people have characterized Charlie Kirk since he died, it's like, do you know anything about politics? I mean, no offense, but I look at these guys like Ryan Mata and others who have been on top of this from the start, and I don't know who half these people are. It's like, do you know anything about politics, or are you just a complete ignoramus? Because I've been doing this for, it'll be 9 years in a few months. 9 years, almost a decade. And my ascendance coincided with Charlie Kirk's exactly. And of course, we had very different paths and came into conflict for most of that decade. And that entire time, basically the entire basis of our conflict is that he was in the pocket of Israel and I was against. And so, people go, well, you're covering for Israel. You're acting like their defense attorney. It's like, no, I'm just trying to set the record straight here. as the nemesis. I knew this man. I watched him vigilantly like a hawk. It was our mission to delegitimize his positions, his whole operation. And I can tell you with authority and with confidence that if there was any give on that subject, if there was a change of heart, we would know about it. We would have been talking about it. We would have felt it. We would have sensed it. A disturbance in the force, it wasn't there. And anyone that believes otherwise is either completely ignorant, or it's wishful thinking, or they're just stupid, or they're trying to use it to parlay that into, kind of a bigger statement about politics. But as I understand it, like I said, based on that letter, it seems to me that he was caught in the middle. His organization is a pro-Israel Zionist organization. That is what it has always been. That is his whole staff. That is his donor base. That's just what it was. It was Talking Points USA. They were unloading pro-Israel talking points to the young. You sign up for a Turning Point chapter, you get a sticker that says, I love Israel. I'm not making that up. That's literally true. You sign up, you make a Turning Point chapter, you get a box of shit, and 50% of it is stickers and buttons and pins and banners that say, I love Israel, I support Israel. Like, that's what it was. He was caught in the middle. And, the reason that I'm really going in on this is the last thing I'll say, just because we're not going to get into the other story. I'll talk a little bit longer. Why am I jumping all over this? Because there's very clearly a concerted effort to steer the mass awakening, okay? It is a fact. It is an undeniable fact that everyone is getting red-pilled, and they hate that. But why are people getting red-pilled? People are getting red-pilled on Twitter and on TikTok because Elon bought Twitter in late 2022, and TikTok has been relatively free from some of the pressure of these Jewish advocacy groups. October 7th was in 2023. So basically right around even before October 7th, and then of course immediately after that, there has just been this rapid pivot. Everybody is now against Israel because of the genocide, because of awareness of the genocide on social media. Like, that is an organic development. And it is people like Candace, Tucker, that are kind of following that trend. Like, what happened first? People got red-pilled first. Seeing that, other people started to talk about it. Did Tucker or Candace ever say anything about Israel prior to October 7th? No! Big fat fucking no. Absolutely not. Did Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens have one critical thing to say in decades between them of political advocacy? Nope. No. October 7th happened. Candace said something brief in December. And then months later after her maternity leave, then she started saying stuff about it. And then immediately she started saying, actually, it's not Jews, it's the Frankists. Do you remember that? That was immediate. So she got on the train when everybody else did, and then immediately started trying to call the shots and say, it's not Jews, it's Frankists. Don't blame Jews. My producer's Jewish. It's Satanists pretending to be Jews. They're actually Sabbatean Frankists. And same thing. When did Tucker start criticizing Israel? About the same time? When did Charlie Kirk's epiphany happen? A year after that? Let's be very clear. The people are waking up. Israel's freaking out. The Republican Party's freaking out. They're trying to talk the masses in off the ledge. Because what are the masses saying? The masses are saying, you killed JFK, you did 9/11, you're responsible for all the wars in the world. The Talmud says you hate us. Okay, so the masses they went 0 to 100 in a year and a half. And then in come Candace and Tucker to say it's not the Jews, it's the neocons, it's the Frankists, it's maybe some of the Zionists. What did Tucker say last week that we covered? He said, if you're obsessed with Jews, that's not healthy. We should treat Israel like every other country. I love Israel. Okay? Like, that's what they're saying. And somebody like Charlie Kirk is caught in the middle of it. He's in the middle of this mass awakening. It's like he's caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's this anti-Israel like riot happening on the campus. His job is to defend Israel on the campus. He's just getting, you know, these blistering attacks. He's sweating going into his donors and saying, dude, help. I have to go and defend this genocide. I'm defending this genocide more than you're defending your own genocide. You got to help me out. I'll help you, but you got to help me. That's not an epiphany. He's not leading the charge. He's not a visionary. He's not even pushing the envelope. He's still acting as a gatekeeper there. So it's part of this broader thing that's going on. And like, look, I would sit down with Tucker Carlson and talk with him about this. Maybe I have the wrong idea. Maybe I'm paranoid. I would sit down and talk with him about this, but I disagree. When he says we should treat Israel like every other country, I disagree with that completely, and that sounds like bullshit. Same goes for all of them. It's like you have the mass awakening, which you cannot overstate the importance of that, the gravity of that, and there seems to be this secondary thing, which is trailing just behind it. It's offbeat. It's dragging behind just a little bit, that's trying to retard this development and steer it. You know, even Tucker, he goes at Turning Point. This was the controversy. Tucker goes to Turning Point and says, we in Washington, D.C. need to acknowledge Epstein was Mossad, because if we don't, then we're going to look like liars, and everyone's going to look at these anti-Semites, and they're the only ones talking about it. Like, that's what, it couldn't be more clear what they're saying to you if you read between the lines. It's not even in between the lines. They're just saying it. So this whole line that Candace, Tucker, and Blumenthal are leading the charge that Charlie Kirk was a martyr against Israel, it's, first of all, it's not fucking true at all. Second of all, that they are a part of this whole thing makes me very suspicious too, because they all attacked me. Blumenthal and Tucker started the rumor that I'm a Fed in 2023. Candace and Tucker then did a show shitting on me saying that. And all three of them say it has nothing to do with Jews. It's just neocons, Frankists, Zionists, you know, some assorted other thing. So the whole operation there, first of all, it seems like an operation. Second of all, it stinks. So I have a pretty strong bullshit detector. I smell bullshit. Don't tell me Charlie Kirk was a martyr against Israel. That is not true. And it's the same triangulation pushing it. Blumenthal, Tucker, and Candace. Very suspicious. Anyway, but that's that. I want to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats now. We'll see what you guys have to say, but that's just a little extra.
Filibuster sent $30. What's your escape plan if Iran nukes Chicago?
Dude, if Iran nukes Chicago, I think it's just over. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to tell you, certainly. But, I mean, dude, if Iran nukes Chicago, they're going to aim it at my headquarters, you know? If a dirty bomb goes off in Chicago, Hamas responsible, they're going to accidentally have the fireball detonate like over my house. They missed Chicago by about 10 miles to the west. It's like, oh, geez, surprise, surprise. Kill two birds with one stone, right? So I think that if Israel false flags America, you can rest assured I'm probably going to go in that operation.
Cookie Baking Granny sent $100. You misunderstand me. No, not PBD or while someone else has invited you to be interviewed. Have you considered inviting someone to an interview?
Thank you for the big super chat. This is from Friday, as I understand it. Yeah, I think I'll do some interviews in the future.
Fignuan sent $25. Barron Trump is a better Christian and possess more aura than you.
He definitely has more aura. It's hard to beat. I don't know his religious affiliation, but he definitely has more aura. How could you not? He's 6'8". His mom's a supermodel. His dad's the president. That's kind of hard to beat, okay? In fairness. I'll be the first to admit Barron Trump. First of all, his name is Barron Trump. barren triumph. His dad is the billionaire president of America. His mom is a supermodel. He's 6'8", blonde and handsome. Like, yeah, you got me beat. Way more aura. But who has more aura than him? I mean, you're probably he's probably top 10 on the planet with aura. So that's not saying much.
Cuban Bay of Pigs Hero sent $20. I'm betting on you to be pres on Polymarket in 20 years. When you do, will you back Rubio and the rest of the Cubans in Miami with their support this time so that we can take back Cuba from the commies and get the fuck out of here once and for all? Do you speak Spanish? You should bank Puerto Ricans. They're Catholic in America first.
Okay, are we doing this again? Is this real or is that bait?
Trevor Mervine sent $20. It's crazy how artificially boosted Berlin Hollyhand has been in the past 2 days. It's an insult if this is the guy that's supposed to succeed Charlie Kirk. At this rate, I dare say I'll miss having Charlie Kirk as political opposition. I think it's really more sad than anything. It seems like we cared more than they did.
Dude, the Brylan Hollyhand thing is crazy. Did you see this? So Brylan Hollyhand, he was sort of on my radar. I've seen him before. He's like 18 years old. I think he's from Alabama. He's like your typical like hick conservative. And I say that like, you know, the type. Like he's wearing a golf shirt. He's wearing his khakis. He's going, I think, University of Alabama or something. He's got the Southern drawl. He's on Fox News with all the typical talking points and everything. So he's been on my radar. And when Charlie Kirk dies, this guy is like giddy. He is such a cynical, sociopathic operator. And I can recognize that. I see it. I get it. Total dark triad, sociopath. He's going around selling himself like I'm going to be the successor, but telling everybody, Charlie wants no one can replace him. He wants us to pick up the microphone. That's why I'm going to be the one to do it. And now after Charlie Kirk died, he immediately goes on Twitter and says, I'm partnering with Turning Point to do a campus tour. It's called the One Conversation at a Time Campus Tour. We're going to 10 campuses. I'm in a private jet. I'm hitting the streets. I'm going to all these campuses. Now, when I saw that announcement, I'm thinking, I thought Turning Point had this other campus tour. They got Tucker, they got Megyn Kelly, they got like big names. So I'm thinking, is this like a pilot program? That's kind of weird. Turning Point has an official campus tour to like honor Charlie Kirk, and it's got Michael Knowles, Tucker, like celebrities. And then here you got this 18-year-old college freshman with like no following. And he's like, Turning Point is sponsoring my tour. It's called the One Conversation at a Time tour. And I'm like, okay, so maybe he's like a new recruit. You know, they're like testing it out. Well, it turns out he just lied. That's not a thing. Like he made it up. He went to 10 different local chapters and said, hey, will you host me? And they said, yeah, sure. And so then he goes on Twitter and says, this is a thing. That'd be like if I said, I'm going to go to 5 different McDonald's and eat lunch there. And then I went on Twitter and said, I'm partnering with McDonald's on the One Big Mac at a Time tour, sponsored by McDonald's, sold out crowd. I just had 3 Big Macs at the LaGrange McDonald's. Like, do you understand the difference? He called up 10 local chapters like college kids and was like, hey, can I do an event? I'll drive there. And they're like, sure. Okay, let's schedule it for this weekend. And then he goes on Twitter and represents it as though like Turning Point sent him, go, Brylan, do what Charlie would have wanted, complete his legacy, finish what he started. Like that did not happen. That's crazy. That's so bold. And now he's getting called on the carpet for it. And rightfully so. What a snake, man. What a sociopath. You fucked up. He almost got away with it, too. But Tyler Boyer called him out. He's a Turning Point action guy. So I saw that. I was like, wow. I thought he was a sociopath before because the guy's a total fake. Everything about him, he's media trained. He's like wrote a stupid fucking book. Another book, his book is called One Generation Away. It's from that Ronald Reagan quote. The Ronald Reagan quote, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. One generation away, how Gen Z is being like gay and pro-Israel. He's on Fox News every week. He's like the fakest human being I've ever seen. And then he did that. I was like, wow, like that's bold. I thought he was fake before. That's like next level. Next level. That's like some next level sociopathy, grifting, conserve, like Charlie Kirk. Maybe that is his successor, because that is some serious next level social climbing, manipulation. So I was sort of impressed. But yeah, Brylan, the old Brylan Hollyhand, I can't wait to see him get pressed on Israel. Everybody's going to be the next big conservative star until they get pressed by the Groyper saying like, hey, what do you think about Jews running America? And you get some yokel from Alabama who's like, Israel's our closest ally. Israel's our greatest friend in the Middle East. Y'all, Israel's like that old neighbor you can always count on. You know, when you're pushing your tractor and you run out of gas and you go to your neighbor and you're like, hey, can I borrow some sugar for my pancakes? And they're like, sure, neighbor, we're doing things different around here. Israel's sort of like that when they need missiles. Like, that shit does not fly when it's fucking 100 Groypers deep asking you about dancing Israelis and like Jewish billionaires. This doesn't work. Sorry, pal. That whole country bumpkin, down home, aw shucks thing, it just doesn't work. Sorry, bud. You're gonna have to get a little more sophisticated. You're gonna need to download a little more internet. You're gonna internet a little harder. In the words of Candace Owens, maybe I internet too hard. Brylan Hollyhan is about to find out the hard way what happens when you don't internet hard enough. Bro is not born of the trial by fire on the fucking far-right internet, on Twitter, on 4chan. It's going to be a rude awakening, okay? He's giving like serious homeschooled by his grandparents energy. Like the Walmart yodeling kid. He's like homeschooled by Mima. And it just isn't gonna fly, dude. Like your classmates, half of your classmates are part of a satanic cult. They worship school shooters. The other half are like making Hitler edits. They're watching America First in study hall. Like it's just not gonna work anymore, okay, dude? It isn't 2005 anymore. So that was the program. That's how it did used to work. It doesn't work that way anymore. So. Charlie Kirk was maybe the last person that could get away with that.
Bob Cotter sent $100. I once yearned for an alliance with the anti-Israel, anti-billionaire, and eco-friendly element of the left wing. Consequently, their deliberate reaction to Charlie Kirk's execution has been very blackpilling and depressing to see, considering what could have been a positive marriage of convenience with them.
Thank you for the big super chat. I agree.
All right, so let's move on to the letter. So, addressing the letter. Charlie Kirk was exactly what Nick described him as. That term that keeps coming up, controlled opposition. In my opinion, he's no different than any other politician. And I'm talking about Charlie Kirk. He's no different than any other politician that takes a significant amount of money from Jewish influences and Israeli influences. So I don't expect him to behave any differently. I think a lot of people who don't look at Charlie Kirk as a politician, they may look at his behavior and see it through a lens that maybe fogs, doesn't show the clarity of the situation or surprises them in certain ways. Why would you be surprised? He's a politician. Charlie Kirk is a politician, just like a lot of our other Democrats and Republicans who take funding from AIPAC, who take funding from Jewish and Israeli influences. He behaves the same exact way. He behaves just like Donald Trump, who's super frustrated because he knows that he has to support Israel. He has to support Bibi Netanyahu. He has to support a lot of what his Jewish backers want when it comes to their agenda. But he's very frustrated because it goes against, in my opinion, his principles, his morals, his values, and most importantly, what he campaigned on and pushed towards as a part of his Make America Great Again, America First theme, right? It makes him look like a fool. I should say, most importantly, it goes against it. It hurts his ego, right? Because it makes people. Donald Trump is the type of person that does not want people looking at him as if somebody else is more important than him. Somebody else is more powerful. Like he's being controlled. He has a big ego. In some ways, he throws that completely out the window when it comes to Bibi Netanyahu tucking his chair in, doing all types of stuff. But I think it does grow to be very frustrating because he consistently has to contradict himself. He puts out a ceasefire. Israel acts like Trump ain't got no pull to be putting out no ceasefire. We doing what we do. Y'all think it's a ceasefire if y'all want. Trump looks like an idiot. Then he goes on TV and he starts cursing, saying they don't know what the F they're doing. No, they know exactly what they're doing. They're bullying you and bullying America and doing whatever is on their agenda and prioritizing that like you should be prioritizing America, Donald Trump. So Charlie Kirk, controlled opposition. Like I said, he's no different than any other politician that takes a significant amount of money from Jewish or Israeli influences. He's simply asking for better propaganda, like Nick said. He's asking for better propaganda, and if this letter is true, that's how I read it. Bibi Netanyahu, figure out how you can get better propaganda. Y'all control the media outlets, tap into whoever it is that you need to make sure that you're doing a better job on social media and everything else to control the propaganda, so that way when I go on these college tours, I can deny what's right in front of us or what's really happening, so therefore I can refer to the propaganda that you're pushing. Charlie Kirk knows that what's going on, or let me rephrase that. I don't believe that Charlie Kirk had some epiphany to where he was just changing his thoughts on Israel and regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict and Israel in that region. I don't think he was changing his thoughts at all. He knew exactly what it was. You're in it, you know it. You just may look the other way. You just may compromise and figure out how you can present it in a way that allows you to keep all of that money that you have rolling in. You didn't have a change of heart. You weren't reaching out for Bibi Netanyahu to change his heart. You weren't reaching out to Bibi Netanyahu, in my opinion, to do anything other than get him to control the propaganda so you're not looking as stupid and losing credibility when you go on your college tours. That's how I saw it. Let's see. He's asking for better propaganda to make his debates smoother and for him to not look as bad for being called out on what actually is happening. I don't think he had a moral change, said all that. I think he was embarrassed by the stance he was forced to take. He's embarrassed by the stance that he's forced to take and wants Israel to do something that can ease that embarrassment, which is to push more BS propaganda. So who knows whether it's real or not, but this is very consistent with Charlie's behavior. And this is why I've said the last couple weeks, if Charlie felt differently and was voicing that to Dave Smith and was voicing it to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, then he should have voiced it out loud in public. See, all that politically correct or all that saying one thing and thinking another, to me, that's cowardly. That's cowardly. That's no different than what we were just talking about when it came to Matt Walsh. It's cowardly. If you feel some type of way, you are responsible as an influencer. You are responsible and in my opinion, have to take a lot of accountability when it comes to the messaging that you're pushing. When it comes to the messaging that you're pushing, you have to take a responsibility for that. Let me put this on Do Not Disturb just so this doesn't get messed up. But you have to take responsibility. So if you're saying one thing behind closed doors and if you're thinking one thing, then why are you going out and saying something? You're propagandizing people. You're lying. You're being phony. You're being cowardly. And I'm not just talking about Charlie Kirk's strategy. I'm talking about everybody that does that. Say how you feel. Why would you say something different? To keep the money rolling in? And that's why people look at Turning Point USA today. Look at what Erica Kirk, your widow, is doing. Look at what they did at the memorial, the way that we look at it. It's all politics. And when I say it's all politics, I mean there's no truth to it. There may be truth. The truth may overlap at some point or another, but it's not led by truth. Truth is not your moral compass. You're not being guided by truth. You're being guided by what puts money in Turning Point USA. And that's what we saw before Charlie Kirk passed away, and that's what we've seen since he's passed away. But Nick said something about, did Tucker or Candace have anything to say about Israel before October 7th? Nick makes this claim, but I think that Candace was different. I think that Candace actually came out the October before, I think it was 2022. And this is when she started to get a lot of heat, when she started to stick up for Kanye West, when he made some of the comments where he was saying, and I looked a couple of them up, but what was he saying? When he said that he's about to go, what was the comment that he made? And he used it the wrong way. Whatever he said, it was supposed to be like a defense, but he said he's about to go something con or something, def con or something. Like he used death instead of deaf or something like that. And it was a defense stance, but he used it the wrong way. And I think that's when Candace Owens started to defend Ye, do the interview that later came out. But I think this is when she started to take some heat and to push back with maybe not Jewish people, but with Israel. Maybe it was Jewish people as well. But I think this is around the time that she was getting labeled either as supporting an anti-Semite in Kanye or being anti-Semitic. So I think that Tucker and Candace are different. And we've talked about this before. I do see them as different. Tucker obviously came out very late when it comes to him calling out Israel. He wasn't doing it when he was on Fox. Candace, I think she's different. She was doing it when she was on Daily Wire, and that's why she got released from Daily Wire. Fired, however you want to call it. So I do see them as a bit different. But y'all tell me, what are y'all thoughts on that? Do you see Candace and Tucker in the same category? I see Candace as somebody who's spoken out a lot earlier and perhaps a lot stronger than Tucker. I see Tucker as being very strategic and just almost saying one thing that we know that we're all going to interpret it a certain way, but then denying it completely. But I think that they just have different strategies. And Tucker said that, or Nick brought up the point that Tucker said that we should treat Israel like any other country. I perhaps wouldn't have pushed back on this, but now that Nick challenged my thinking on it, I think that this is more aligned with the controlled opposition. Because, I go back and forth. I tell you what, you can't treat Israel like any other country because Israel's not like any other country. Other countries, and this is what the point we're making with Matt Walsh, and him so willing to call out Hispanics, him so willing to call out Muslims, him so willing to call out whoever else having an influence in our government or on our American culture, but look who has the greatest influence. So I don't think that you can treat Israel the same as other countries because Israel has shown a history of penetrating and leveraging whatever they have, whether it's money, whether it's blackmail, whatever it is that people, I don't know if every rumor's true or whatever, but I think that it's clear that Israel spies on us and they use certain leverage that they have either attained through them spying on us or through their financial efforts to manipulate, control, influence, persuade, whatever you want to call it when it comes to our most powerful leaders and the people that are decision makers in America. So is the letter true? Is it not? Who knows? But it does seem very consistent with the behavior that Charlie Kirk has always shown. So I'll leave it there. All right, we'll wrap up. As always, appreciate y'all tapping in. Appreciate y'all giving us your time, your effort, your attention, your energy. Always appreciate the comments. Even if I don't respond to all of them, I definitely read all of them. So appreciate y'all, and I look forward to the next video. All right, did I leave anything out? No, and of course, y'all let me know. Let me know, leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know where I may be wrong, where I may have some blind spots, where my bias may be coming in, and I'm always looking to grow. So I'll see you on the next one.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.